I didn't know for certain, but their behavior patterns suggested they were more curious than aggressive, and I was prepared to communicate in their own language. They spent the rest of the day reviewing the data from Lisa's encounter. Her recording devices had captured dozens of different WASP communication patterns. Each sound seemed to correspond to different behaviors or responses. "This changes everything we thought we knew about Thetaron wasps," Zara said as they analyzed the recordings. "It changes everything about how we study dangerous species," Lisa agreed. "Most of what we call aggression is really just fear or misunderstanding." That evening, news of Lisa's successful contact with the razor wasps spread throughout the institute. Students and teachers alike wanted to know how she had done it. Some were amazed, others were skeptical. Professor Kelvon was neither. "Reckless endangerment," he declared when he heard about the incident. "Complete disregard for safety protocols. This human has been here one day and already she's causing problems." But Zara noticed something else in his eyes, something that looked like worry. "She discovered more about the wasps in 10 minutes than our researchers learned in 2 months, Zara pointed out. "She got lucky," Professor Kelvon replied. "Next time, she might not be so fortunate." "Or maybe she understands something we don't," Zara said. Professor Kelvon's 4 eyes narrowed. "Don't let this human fill your head with dangerous ideas, Miss Zara Thek. Her primitive methods have no place in serious scientific research." But as Zara walked back to her room that night, she couldn't stop thinking about what she had witnessed. Lisa had done something impossible. She had communicated with creatures that others thought were mindless and violent. More importantly, she had shown Zara a completely different way of thinking about research. Instead of studying subjects from a safe distance, Lisa got close to them. Instead of assuming they were dangerous, she tried to understand them. It was exactly the kind of thinking that Professor Kelvon called impossible to tame. For the first time since arriving at the Institute, Zara felt like she had found someone who truly understood what it meant to be a researcher. Word of Lisa's success with the razor wasps spread quickly through the Institute. Within days, professors from other departments were requesting her assistance with their own problem subjects. But Lisa turned them all down. "I'm here to work with Zara," she told each one politely. "Our research partnership is just beginning." Zara was surprised by this. Most researchers would have jumped at the chance to work with famous professors on important projects. But Lisa seemed genuinely interested in continuing their collaboration. They spent the next week studying together. Lisa's methods were unlike anything Zara had learned at the Institute. Instead of relying on advanced sensors and computer analysis, Lisa watched subjects directly for hours. She took notes by hand. She drew sketches of behavior patterns. "Why don't you use the automated recording systems?" Zara asked one day as they observed a group of Korvan shadow hunters. "Machines record what they're programmed to see," Lisa explained. "But behavior is often subtle, a slight change in posture, a brief pause before moving. These details might seem unimportant to a computer, but they can reveal everything about an animal's emotional state." Zara looked at Lisa's notebook. It was filled with detailed drawings and observations written in multiple languages. Earth languages that Zara couldn't read, but also notes in Galactic Common. "You're studying us too," Zara realized, seeing notes about Velthari behavior patterns. Lisa smiled. "Is that a problem?" "No, I'm just curious what you've observed." "Well," Lisa said thoughtfully, "Velthari crystal skin brightness correlates directly with emotional intensity, but there are subtle variations. When you're angry, the light is sharp and focused. When you're excited about a discovery, it's warmer and more diffused. When you're content, it has a steady, peaceful glow." Zara looked down at her arms. Her skin was indeed glowing with that warm, diffused light Lisa had described. "You can read my emotions just by looking at me. Once you know what to watch for. Every species has tells, humans included. What tells do humans have? Micro-expressions, changes in breathing patterns, unconscious body language. Humans are actually terrible at hiding their emotions, despite what we like to think." Over the following days, Zara began to notice things about Lisa that she had missed before. The way Lisa's eyes crinkled slightly when she was truly interested in something, how her breathing slowed when she was concentrating deeply, the almost invisible tensing of her shoulders when she disagreed with something but chose not to argue. It was fascinating. Lisa was teaching her to see behavior in ways she had never considered. Their biggest breakthrough came during their third week together. They were studying the shadow hunters again, trying to understand their territorial behavior. The Institute's official research concluded that shadow hunters were solitary creatures that fought constantly over resources. But Lisa saw something different. "They're not fighting," she said, watching two shadow hunters circle each other. "They're communicating." "It looks like aggression to me," Zara replied. The creatures were snarling and snapping at each other, their claws extended. "Watch their tails," Lisa said, "and their ear positions." Zara looked more carefully. The shadow hunters' tails were held low but relaxed. Their ears were forward, alert but not flattened in fear or anger. "Now watch what happens when the smaller one backs down," Lisa continued. The smaller shadow hunter took a step back and lowered its head. Immediately, the larger one's posture changed. Its snarling stopped. It approached the smaller creature and touched noses with it. "They're greeting each other," Zara breathed. "Social hierarchy establishment," Lisa agreed. The aggression was really just a way of determining who was dominant. Once that was settled, they became friendly. "But the Institute's research says they're solitary." The Institute's research observed them in artificial environments with limited space and resources. Under those conditions, they probably do fight, but in their natural habitat, they have complex social structures. Zara felt her understanding of everything she had learned shifting. How many other facts about alien species were based on flawed observations? "Lisa," she said slowly, "you're not just studying animal behavior, you're studying how we study animal behavior." "Smart girl," Lisa said with a grin. That evening, they sat in the Institute's observation lounge, looking out at the stars. Other students chatted and studied around them, but Zara barely noticed. Her mind was still processing everything Lisa had shown her. "Why are you really here?" Zara asked suddenly. Lisa was quiet for a long moment. "What do you mean?" "You could be studying anywhere. Earth must have plenty of creatures for you to observe. Why come all the way out here to work with someone like me?" "Someone like you?" Zara's skin dimmed slightly. "You know what the professors say about me. Difficult, impossible to control, problem student." "Ah," Lisa said softly. "You think you're broken." "Aren't I? 3 years here, and I've never fit in, never followed the rules properly, never became the kind of student they want." Lisa turned to face her directly. "Zara, can I tell you something about humans?" Zara nodded. "On Earth, we have a type of predator called a persistence hunter. Most predators rely on speed or strength to catch their prey, but persistence hunters are different. We follow our prey slowly and steadily over long distances. We don't give up. We don't get distracted. We keep going until we succeed." That sounds familiar from the files I read about humans. The thing about persistence hunting is that it requires a very specific mindset. You have to be willing to ignore what everyone else is doing. You have to trust your own instincts even when others doubt you. You have to be impossible to deter. Zara's skin began to glow brighter. "Like being impossible to tame?" "Exactly like that. The qualities that make you difficult for your professors are the same qualities that make you an exceptional researcher. You question everything. You don't accept answers just because someone in authority gives them to you. You think independently." "But the professors say those are problems." "The professors want students who will follow established methods and reach predictable conclusions. That's fine for most research, but breakthrough discoveries come from people who are willing to challenge everything, people who refuse to be tamed." Zara felt something shift inside her. For 3 years, she had thought there was something wrong with her, that she needed to change to fit in, but Lisa was suggesting the opposite. "You're saying I should stay the way I am?" "I'm saying you should be more of who you are. The Institute needs researchers who think differently. They just don't know it yet. And humans understand this because you're persistence hunters? Lisa's smile was mysterious. Humans understand this because we've spent thousands of years learning to read other species, not just animals, but other intelligent beings. It's how we survive. By reading behavior, by understanding what motivates others, what they fear, what they desire, what makes them trust or distrust. It's the most sophisticated form of hunting there is. Zara stared at her. You're not just studying me academically. You're hunting me. Not hunting to harm, Lisa said quickly. Hunting to understand, to connect with. Humans are social predators, Zara. We form packs, we work together, we protect our own. And you consider me part of your pack? I consider you someone worth understanding, someone worth protecting from those who would try to break your spirit. Zara felt her crystal skin warming with emotions she couldn't name. Gratitude, relief, something that might have been hope. Professor Kelvon says I need to learn my place. Professor Kelvon is afraid of you. Afraid? Of me? You represent everything he can't control. Everything that challenges his authority. Every question you ask undermines his certainty. Of course he's afraid. Then why doesn't he just expel me? Because deep down, he knows you're right about most things, and that terrifies him more than anything. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching ships come and go from the docking bays. Zara felt like she was seeing herself clearly for the first time in years. Lisa, what you did with the wasps, that wasn't just about understanding them, was it? What do you mean? You were showing everyone that the impossible was possible, that dangerous creatures could be approached safely if you understood them properly. Maybe. You were showing them that I was right about the shadow hunters, that aggression usually has a purpose. Possibly. You were proving that someone who thinks differently can succeed where traditional methods fail. Lisa turned to look at her directly. You're very perceptive. You were proving that I don't need to be tamed. No, Lisa said softly. I was proving that you should never be tamed. The galaxy needs minds like yours, Zara. Wild minds. Free minds. Minds that refuse to accept limitations. Zara felt tears forming in her eyes. For 3 years, she had felt alone. Broken. Wrong. But Lisa saw her differently. Lisa saw her as she wanted to be seen. Thank you, she whispered. For what? For understanding me. For not trying to change me. Lisa smiled. That's what packmates do. We accept each other as we are. As they walked back to their rooms that night, Zara realized something had fundamentally changed. She was still the same person she had always been, but now she understood that being untamable wasn't a flaw. It was her greatest strength. The crisis began 3 weeks into Lisa's stay at the Institute. Zara was in the library when the emergency alarm started blaring. Red lights flashed throughout the station as the computer voice announced a containment breach in the high-security section. All students report to emergency stations immediately. Faculty to containment protocol positions. Zara gathered her data pads and headed for the emergency exits like everyone else. But as she passed a viewport, she saw something that made her stop. Security teams were rushing towards Section X, the most dangerous part of the station. Section X was where they kept specimens too aggressive for normal study. She thought about Lisa, who had gone to Section X that morning to observe something called draconian spine cats. Zara's crystal skin began to glow with worry. Instead of heading to the emergency stations, she turned towards Section X. The corridors were chaos. Security guards ran past her carrying heavy weapons. Scientists evacuated with their data and research materials. Emergency crews wheeled medical equipment toward the breach. Zara found Lisa in Observation Lab 12, calmly watching a monitor screen while everyone else panicked around her. What happened? Zara asked, pushing through the crowd. Multiple containment failures, Lisa replied without taking her eyes off the screen. Something caused simultaneous breaches in 7 different cells. On the monitor, Zara could see the spine cats prowling the corridors. These were massive predators from Draco Prime, with razor-sharp spines along their backs and claws that could cut through metal. Behind them came other creatures, shadow hunters, acid spitters, crystal wasps from the moon of Vega. "They're all working together," Zara said in amazement. "Pack behavior," Lisa agreed. "When multiple predator species are confined in the same area, they sometimes form temporary alliances against a common threat." "What common threat?" Lisa pointed to another monitor showing security teams with weapons drawn. "Us." Professor Kelvon burst into the lab, his 4 eyes wide with panic. "Miss Zarathek, Dr. Morgan, you need to evacuate immediately. The creatures have overrun 3 sections already." "Where are they heading?" Lisa asked calmly. "The main laboratory complex. If they reach the advanced containment areas." Professor Kelvon didn't finish the sentence, but Zara understood. The advanced containment areas held specimens that could destroy the entire station. "Has anyone tried to communicate with them?" Lisa asked. Professor Kelvon stared at her. "Communicate? They're mindless killers. The only option is to destroy them before they cause more damage." "They're not mindless," Lisa said firmly. "They're scared and confused. Force will only make them more aggressive." "You're insane if you think you can reason with those monsters." Lisa stood up and headed for the door. "I don't need to reason with them. I need to understand what they want." "Lisa, no," Zara said, grabbing her arm. "It's too dangerous." "More dangerous than letting security teams hunt them down with weapons? That will only confirm that we're enemies." Professor Kelvon blocked the doorway. "I cannot allow you to leave this lab. Station protocol requires all personnel to remain in safe areas during containment breaches." Lisa looked at him with those calm green eyes. "Professor, with respect, your protocol is going to get people killed, including the creatures. Better them than us. Better no one at all." Zara made a decision. "I'm going with her." "Miss Zarathek, you will do no such thing," Professor Kelvon ordered. "Both of you will remain here until security resolves this situation." "How?" Lisa asked. "With weapons? These creatures have been imprisoned and studied against their will. Now they're free and they think we're their enemies. Violence will only prove them right. What would you suggest instead?" "Let me talk to them." Professor Kelvon's tentacles curled with frustration. "You cannot talk to animals." "I've done it before," Lisa said simply. Before anyone could stop her, she slipped past Professor Kelvon and out the door. Zara followed immediately, her skin blazing with determination. They made their way through the station corridors, following the trail of destruction left by the escaped creatures. Broken equipment, damaged walls, and the occasional injured security guard marked their path. "Lisa," Zara said as they walked, "what are you planning to do?" "Find their leader and establish communication." "How do you know they have a leader?" "Mixed species groups always develop hierarchy. Someone will have emerged as the dominant personality. If I can reach them, the others will follow." They found the creature pack in the main corridor leading to the advanced containment areas. The draconian spine cats had indeed taken charge, with the largest male at the front. Behind him, shadow hunters and other predators moved in coordinated formation. "There," Lisa whispered, pointing to the lead spine cat. "He's the one making decisions." The creature was magnificent and terrifying, nearly 3 meters long, covered in gleaming spines, with intelligence burning in his golden eyes. He was studying the sealed door to the advanced containment section, clearly planning his next move. Lisa began walking toward them. "Lisa, stop," Zara hissed. "They'll kill you." "No, they won't. Watch." Lisa moved slowly and deliberately, making no sudden movements. She kept her hands visible and her posture non-threatening. When the first shadow hunter noticed her, it growled a warning. Lisa growled back. It was a perfect imitation of the shadow hunter's vocalization. The creature stopped growling and tilted its head in confusion. The spine cat leader turned toward them, his golden eyes fixed on Lisa with predatory focus. His spines rose threateningly. Lisa sat down on the floor. The simple action was so unexpected that all the creatures paused. Sitting made her smaller, less threatening. It was a gesture of respect, not submission. She began to vocalize, not human words, but the communication sounds she had learned from studying different species. Click patterns from the wasps, low rumbles from the shadow hunters, harmonic tones from the spine cats. The lead spine cat approached her cautiously. His spines were still raised, but his posture was curious rather than aggressive. Lisa continued her multi-species communication, telling them, as best she could in their own languages, that she was not their enemy. The spine cat stopped just out of reach and studied her for a long moment. Then, incredibly, he sat down as well. One by one, the other creatures followed suit. The shadow hunters, the acid spitters, even the nervous crystal wasps. They formed a loose circle around Lisa, watching her with intelligent attention. Zara realized she was witnessing something unprecedented. A human communicating with multiple alien species simultaneously, using their own languages to establish trust and cooperation. Remarkable, whispered a voice behind her. Zara turned to see Professor Kelvon and several other faculty members watching from a safe distance. Lisa continued her communication session for nearly an hour. Through a combination of vocalizations, gestures, and what could only be called interspecies diplomacy, she negotiated with the escaped creatures. She couldn't promise them freedom. They were too dangerous to release on a space station. But she could promise better treatment, larger containment areas, more stimulation, respect for their intelligence and social needs. In return, they would return to containment peacefully. The spine cat leader considered her offer. He communicated with the other predators in their various languages. After what seemed like an eternity, he stood up and began walking back toward the containment areas. The others followed. Lisa stood and walked beside them, continuing her reassuring vocalizations. She led them back to their holding areas, like a shepherd guiding her flock. Within 2 hours, all the escaped creatures were back in containment. No one had been seriously injured, no property damage beyond what had already occurred. Most importantly, the creatures seemed calmer and more settled than they had been before the breach. The station returned to normal operations, but nothing was really normal anymore. That evening, Zara found Lisa in her room, making notes in her journal. "How did you know it would work?" Zara asked. "I didn't know for certain," Lisa admitted, "but I understood what they needed. They weren't trying to escape the station. They were trying to find better living conditions. Once I could communicate that we were willing to negotiate, they became cooperative. You saved lives today. Theirs and ours." "We saved lives," Lisa corrected. "You chose to come with me when it was dangerous. That took courage." Zara sat on the edge of Lisa's bed. "Lisa, what you did today, no other species in the galaxy could have done that." "Maybe. Humans aren't just persistence predators, are they? You're something else entirely." Lisa looked up from her journal. "What do you think we are?" "You're social predators who specialize in understanding other minds, not just animal minds, any minds. You study behavior so well that you can predict and influence it." "Go on." "That's why you understood me so quickly, why you knew exactly what I needed to hear, why you could gain my trust without trying to control me." Lisa nodded slowly. "You didn't tame me," Zara continued, her crystal skin glowing with realization. "You never intended to tame me. You wanted me to trust you willingly." "Yes. Because willing cooperation is more powerful than forced obedience. Much more powerful." Zara stared at her friend with new understanding. "Humans are the most sophisticated predators in the galaxy, aren't they? You don't hunt with claws or teeth. You hunt with empathy and understanding." "We prefer to think of it as forming alliances," Lisa said gently. "But it's still hunting, social hunting. You identify what others need, what they fear, what they desire, then you provide it, and in return, they become loyal to you." When you put it like that, it sounds manipulative. It is manipulative. But it's also kind. You genuinely care about the beings you hunt. You want them to be happy and successful. Lisa closed her journal and looked directly at Zara. "Are you afraid of me now?" Zara considered the question seriously. Should she be afraid? Lisa had essentially admitted to being a sophisticated predator who had studied Zara's psychology and used that knowledge to gain her trust. But Lisa had also protected her, supported her, helped her understand her own worth. If this was predation, it was the most benevolent form imaginable. "No," Zara said finally. "I'm not afraid. I'm impressed and grateful." "Grateful? You could have used your understanding of me for selfish purposes. Instead, you used it to help me become more myself. If that's what human predation looks like, then maybe being hunted isn't such a bad thing." Lisa smiled. "Not hunted, Zara. Befriended. There's a difference." "Is there?" "When a human truly accepts you as a friend, we don't try to change you or control you. We try to help you become the best version of yourself, even if that makes you harder to predict or influence." Zara's skin glowed with warmth. "So, you're saying that by helping me stay untamable, you're actually going against your predatory instincts?" "I'm saying that the highest form of human predation is teaching others to be independent. Strong friends are more valuable than weak followers." "That's beautiful and terrifying. Most things worth understanding are both." Zara lay back on the bed and stared at the ceiling. "The galaxy has no idea what humans really are, do they?" "Not yet, but they will. Humans are patient. We take our time. We build relationships slowly and carefully. Eventually, the galaxy will understand that we're not here to conquer or destroy. You're here to befriend. We're here to form the largest, most diverse pack in the history of the universe." Zara turned to look at her. "And I'm part of this pack now? If you want to be. Even though I'm impossible to tame?" Lisa's smile was warm and genuine. "Especially because you're impossible to tame. The galaxy needs more minds like yours, Zara. Wild minds. Free minds. Minds that refuse to accept limitations." As Zara drifted off to sleep that night, she thought about pack dynamics and social predators and the strange, wonderful humans who had quietly begun reshaping the galaxy through friendship rather than force. She was no longer the difficult student who didn't fit in. She was part of something larger, something that valued her independence and encouraged her questions. She was pack. She was understood. She was exactly as untamable as she was meant to be. And for the first time in her life, that felt like exactly enough. Zara Thek walked through the halls of the Galactic Institute with her head held high. Her crystal skin caught the light from the ceiling panels and threw rainbow colors on the white walls. Other students moved out of her way. Some whispered as she passed. She did not care. The young Velthari female had been at the Institute for 3 years now. 3 long years of classes, tests, and teachers who did not understand her. She was studying xenobiology, the science of alien life forms. It was her passion. But the teachers here wanted her to think like them, act like them, be like them. Zara was different. Where other students followed rules, she asked why the rules existed. Where others accepted old ideas, she questioned everything. Where others worked in groups, she preferred to work alone. This made her teachers angry. Problem student, they called her. Difficult. Impossible to control. Professor Kelvin was the worst of them all. The tall blue Altarian had made it his personal mission to break her spirit. His 4 eyes would stare at her during class. His tentacle fingers would tap on his desk when she spoke. He did not like her questions. He did not like her methods. He did not like her at all. Today was no different. Zara sat in the back row of advanced predator studies. Around her, students from 12 different worlds took notes on their datapads. They wrote down every word Professor Kelvin said. They nodded when he spoke. They never disagreed. "The Korvan Shadowhunter is the perfect example of failed evolution," Professor Kelvin was saying. His voice was deep and smooth. "These creatures are too aggressive, too territorial. They cannot be studied safely. They attack anything that comes near. This is why they will go extinct soon." Zara felt her crystal skin grow warm. This was wrong. She had read all the reports about shadow hunters. She had watched videos of them in the wild. They were not mindless killers. They had reasons for their actions. She raised her hand. Professor Kelvin saw her, but kept talking. "Aggression without purpose is a sign of lower intelligence. These beasts, they are not beasts," Zara said, standing up. Her voice was clear and strong. "They are protecting their young." The classroom went quiet. All eyes turned to her. Professor Kelvin's four eyes narrowed. "Miss Zarathek," he said slowly, "you will not interrupt my lecture." "But you are wrong," she said. Her crystal skin was glowing brighter now. When Velthari got emotional, they lit up like small suns. The shadow hunters only attack during breeding season. They are defending their nests. This is not mindless aggression. This is parental protection. Professor Kelvin's face darkened. His tentacles curled into tight balls. "You think you know better than researchers who have studied these creatures for decades?" "I think the researchers were asking the wrong questions," Zara replied. "They focused on the attacks. They did not ask why the attacks happened." Murmurs filled the room. Some students agreed with her. Others looked shocked that she would challenge a professor so directly. "Sit down," Professor Kelvin ordered. "You are disrupting the class." "I am trying to learn," Zara said. "But you are teaching old ideas that do not make sense." The professor's skin turned a deeper shade of blue. This was a sign of great anger in his species. "Miss Zarathek, report to my office after class. We need to discuss your attitude problem." Zara sat down but did not look away from him. Her skin was still glowing. Around her, other students whispered. Some looked impressed. Others looked worried for her. After class, Zara walked to Professor Kelvin's office. The door was made of smart glass. It turned solid when she pressed the call button. "Enter," came his voice from inside. The office was large and cold. The walls were covered with awards and pictures of the professor with famous scientists. Professor Kelvin sat behind a massive desk made of black stone. He did not look up when she entered. "3 years," he said finally. 3 years you have been in my classes. 3 years of questioning everything. 3 years of thinking you know better than your teachers." Zara stood straight. Her skin had dimmed but was still glowing softly. "I do not think I know everything. I think there is always more to learn." "You are impossible," Professor Kelvin said. He looked up at her with his 4 eyes. "Impossible to teach. Impossible to guide. Impossible to tame." The word tame hit Zara like a physical blow. In Galactic Common, it meant more than just control. It meant to break someone's spirit until they obeyed without question. "I do not want to be tamed," she said quietly. "That is your problem," the professor replied. "You think independence is strength. You think questioning authority makes you smart. But in the real scientific world, you must follow rules. You must respect those who know more than you." "And what if those who know more are wrong?" Professor Kelvin slammed his hand on the desk. The sound echoed in the room. "This is exactly what I mean. You cannot accept that others might be right, and you might be wrong." "I can accept being wrong," Zara said, "but only when someone proves it with facts, not because they have a title." The professor stood up. He was much taller than her. His blue skin was almost purple with anger. "You are dismissed from my class." Zara felt her heart sink. Advanced Predator Studies was her favorite class. It was the one place where she could study what she loved most. "For how long?" she asked. "Until you learn to show proper respect," he said. "Until you understand your place." Zara turned and walked toward the door. At the threshold, she stopped and looked back. "Professor," she said, "respect is earned, not demanded." She left before he could reply. Outside the office, other students avoided her eyes. News traveled fast at the institute. By tomorrow, everyone would know that the problem student had been kicked out of another class. Zara walked to her small room in the student quarters. The walls were bare except for pictures of various predator species she had collected over the years. Corvan shadow hunters, Thetaran razor wasps, draconian spine cats, all creatures that others called dangerous or impossible to understand. She sat on her bed and looked at the pictures. These animals were not evil, they were not broken, they were just different. They had their own ways of surviving, their own reasons for their actions, just like her. Zara picked up her datapad and began to write in her personal journal. Day 1095 at the Galactic Institute. Professor Kelvon has dismissed me from advanced predator studies. He says I am impossible to tame. He means this as an insult, but maybe he is right. Maybe some things should not be tamed. Maybe some things are meant to stay wild and free and true to their nature. She paused and looked at the picture of a shadow hunter protecting its cubs. The professors here want students who follow without thinking. They want researchers who accept old ideas without question. They want tame minds that will never challenge the system. But the greatest discoveries come from those who refuse to be tamed, those who ask the hard questions, those who are willing to be different. Zara closed the datapad and lay back on her bed. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, more teachers who wanted to break her spirit, more students who whispered about her behind her back, more attempts to make her into something she was not. But she would not give up. She would continue to question, continue to learn, continue to be herself, even if it meant being alone, even if it meant being called impossible, even if it meant never being tamed. Outside her window, the stars shone bright in the darkness of space. Somewhere out there were worlds full of creatures that others called impossible to understand. Zara smiled. She would find a way to understand them, because sometimes the impossible just needed someone willing to try. The announcement came during morning assembly. Director Nexus, a tall being made of living metal, stood at the podium. His voice echoed through the great hall where students and teachers had gathered. "The Institute is proud to announce a new exchange program," he said. "We will be hosting our first researcher from the planet Earth. This species, called humans, has recently joined the galactic community." Whispers filled the hall. Most students had never heard of humans before. Zara sat in the back, only half listening. She had bigger problems than some new exchange student. "The human researcher will be studying xenobiology," Director Nexus continued. "She will work with one of our advanced students for the duration of her stay." Professor Kelvon stood up from his seat in the faculty section. "Director, with respect, humans are barely past their own planet. What could they possibly teach us about xenobiology?" "That is exactly why this exchange is important," the director replied. "Fresh perspectives can lead to new discoveries, even from primitive species." The way he said primitive made it clear what he really thought about humans. Zara rolled her eyes. The Institute claimed to welcome all species, but they clearly had their favorites. After assembly, Zara walked to the library. It was her favorite place on the station. Tall shelves held data crystals from thousands of worlds. The reading alcoves were quiet and peaceful. Here, she could study without interruption. She was reading about pack behavior in Arctic predators when someone approached her table. Zara looked up, expecting to see another student asking to borrow her notes. Instead, she saw Professor Kelvon. His 4 eyes were staring at her with an expression she could not read. His tentacle fingers drummed on the table. "Miss Zarathek," he said, "I have an assignment for you." "I thought you dismissed me from your class," Zara replied, not looking away from her data pad. "This is different. The director has asked me to assign the human researcher to one of our students. I have chosen you." Zara finally looked up. "Why me?" Professor Kelvon's mouth curved into what might have been a smile, but it was not a kind smile. "Because you both seem to have trouble following proper procedures. Perhaps you will understand each other." Zara understood. This was punishment. He was giving her the worst assignment possible, babysitting some primitive alien who knew nothing about real science. "When does this human arrive?" she asked. "Tomorrow. Her name is Lisa Morgan. You will meet her at Docking Bay 7 and show her around the Institute. You will help her with her research and make sure she does not cause any problems." "What kind of research?" "That remains to be seen. Humans apparently study something they call behavioral psychology. Primitive nonsense, if you ask me." Professor Kelvon turned to leave, then stopped. "Miss Zarathek, this is your chance to prove you can work with others. Do not waste it." After he left, Zara stared at her datapad without really seeing it. Behavioral psychology? She had never heard of such a thing. She accessed the Institute's database and searched for information about humans. The files were thin. Humans were a young species from a small blue planet. They had only achieved spaceflight recently. Their technology was primitive compared to most galactic civilizations. They had no telepathic abilities, no advanced genetic modifications, no cybernetic enhancements. But there was something in the files that caught her attention. Humans were classified as persistence predators. They hunted by following their prey for long distances until the prey became too tired to run. It was an unusual hunting method. Most predators relied on speed, strength, or stealth. The next morning, Zara stood in Docking Bay 7 waiting for the human transport ship. She wore her formal student robes and tried to look professional. Around her, dock workers prepared for the arrival. The ship that came through the docking tunnel was small and simple, nothing like the elegant vessels used by advanced civilizations. It looked almost crude compared to Velthari crystal ships or Altarian bio-vessels. The airlock opened with a soft hiss. Zara expected to see some strange alien creature step out. Instead, what emerged looked surprisingly familiar. The human was female, roughly the same size as Zara. She had soft brown hair that fell to her shoulders and green eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. Her skin was pale pink, unmarked by scars or modifications. She wore simple gray clothing and carried only a small bag. Zara had expected someone more alien. This creature looked harmless, almost fragile. "Dr. Lisa Morgan?" Zara asked, stepping forward. The human turned toward her and smiled. It was a genuine smile that reached her eyes. "Yes, that's me. You must be Zara Thek. Thank you for meeting me." Her voice was soft but clear. She spoke Galactic Common with only a slight accent. Zara was surprised by how normal she seemed. "Welcome to the Galactic Institute," Zara said formally. "I am assigned to assist with your orientation and research." "That's very kind of you," Lisa said. "I'm looking forward to working together." As they walked through the station corridors, Zara pointed out important locations. The dining halls, the laboratories, the library, the student quarters. Lisa listened carefully and asked intelligent questions. "What kind of research do you focus on?" Lisa asked as they passed the biology labs. "Predator behavior," Zara replied. "I study how different species hunt and survive." "That's fascinating," Lisa said. "I study something similar on Earth. We call it behavioral psychology." Professor Kelvon mentioned that. What exactly is behavioral psychology? Lisa was quiet for a moment as they walked. "It's the study of why beings act the way they do. What motivates them, what drives their decisions, how they respond to different situations. You mean like instinct?" Instinct is part of it, but also learned behavior, social patterns, emotional responses, the complex mix of factors that make each individual unique. Zara found herself interested despite her expectations. This was not the primitive nonsense Professor Kelvin had described. They reached the student quarters where Lisa would be staying. Her room was small but comfortable, with a bed, desk, and personal storage unit. "This is nice," Lisa said, setting down her bag. "Much better than the research stations I'm used to." "What kind of research stations?" Zara asked. "Oh, various places. Remote observation posts in forests, underground bunkers near animal dens, floating platforms above ocean predator territories. You learn to make do with basic facilities." Zara stared at her. "You study predators in their natural habitats? That is extremely dangerous." Lisa shrugged. "Only if you don't understand them. Most predators won't attack unless they feel threatened or cornered. The key is learning to read their signals and respond appropriately." Reading their signals? Body language, vocal patterns, territorial markers. Every species has ways of communicating their intentions. Once you learn the language, you can coexist safely. This was completely different from how the Institute taught predator studies. Here, everything was done from a safe distance, using sensors and remote equipment. The idea of actually getting close to dangerous creatures was considered insane. "Professor Kelvon says predators are too aggressive to study safely," Zara said. Lisa tilted her head. "Aggression usually has a purpose: fear, protection, competition for resources, defending territory or young. If you can understand the purpose, you can predict and work with the behavior." They spent the rest of the day touring the research facilities. Lisa examined the equipment with obvious interest. But she also asked questions that surprised Zara. "Do you ever observe the subjects directly?" Lisa asked in the main xenobiology lab. "Without the sensor barriers?" "That would be too dangerous," Zara replied. "The containment fields protect researchers from harm. But don't they also change how the subjects behave? If they can sense the barriers, it might affect their natural responses." Zara had never thought of that before. The Institute's methods were designed for safety first. Accuracy came second. That evening, they sat in the dining hall, sharing a meal. Around them, students from dozens of species ate and talked. Many were staring at Lisa with curiosity. A few whispered among themselves. "They are talking about you," Zara said. "You are the first human most of them have ever seen." "I figured as much," Lisa said calmly. "What are they saying?" "Mostly questions about your species. Some think you look too weak to be a real researcher." Lisa smiled. "Appearances can be deceiving." "You do not seem bothered by their stares." "I'm used to being watched. It comes with the job. When you study pack animals, you have to get comfortable with being the center of attention." After dinner, they returned to Lisa's room. She unpacked her few belongings while Zara watched. Most of it was simple clothing and basic tools, but there were also small devices Zara did not recognize. "What are those?" she asked, pointing to a collection of metal objects. "Recording equipment," Lisa explained. "Audio pickups, movement sensors, pheromone detectors. Simple tools for field observation." "They look primitive compared to our equipment." "Simple, not primitive," Lisa corrected gently. "Sometimes the best tools are the ones that don't interfere with what you're trying to study." Zara was beginning to realize that this human was not what she had expected. Lisa was not ignorant or primitive. She was different. Her methods were different. Her thinking was different. And perhaps most surprising of all, she treated Zara like an equal. She listened to her questions. She took her opinions seriously. She did not try to correct her or change her. For the first time in 3 years, Zara felt like she was talking to someone who understood what real research meant. "Tomorrow I would like to observe some of your research subjects," Lisa said as she finished unpacking. "Professor Kelvon mentioned that you have Thetaron razor wasps here." "Yes, but they are extremely aggressive, very dangerous. You can only observe them through the containment barriers." Lisa's green eyes seemed to sparkle with interest. "We'll see about that." Something in her tone made Zara's crystal skin tingle with anticipation. This human was planning something that would probably get them both in trouble. Zara found herself looking forward to tomorrow more than she had looked forward to anything in years. The next morning, Zara led Lisa to Laboratory Section C. This was where the Institute kept its most dangerous research subjects. The hallways here were wider, with emergency exits every few meters. Warning signs glowed red on the walls. "The Thetaron razor wasps are in Containment Cell 7, Zara explained as they walked. "They were brought here 2 months ago from their home world. 3 researchers have been injured trying to study them." "What kind of injuries?" Lisa asked. "Poison stings. The wasps attack anything that moves. Professor Kelvon says they are perfect examples of mindless aggression." They stopped in front of a thick, transparent wall. Beyond it was a large chamber filled with what looked like angry golden lightning. The wasps moved so fast they were just blurs of color. Their angry buzzing could be heard even through the barrier. "Fascinating," Lisa whispered. She pressed her face close to the glass and watched the swarming insects. "They never stop moving," Zara said. "Always agitated, always ready to attack." "Look closer," Lisa said softly. "They're not just moving randomly." Zara looked again. At first, all she could see was chaos. Golden bodies zipping back and forth in wild patterns. But as she watched more carefully, she began to notice something. "There is a pattern," she said, surprised. "They're taking turns," Lisa explained. "Some are guarding the nest in the center. Others are patrolling the perimeter. The rest are resting on the walls. They're working in shifts." Zara stared at the wasps with new eyes. Lisa was right. What looked like mindless chaos was actually organized behavior. "The previous researchers focused on individual wasps," Lisa continued. But these are social insects. You have to watch the group dynamics. A lab technician approached them. He was a young Centauri male with blue-green skin and large compound eyes. You shouldn't get too close to the barrier, he warned. The wasps become more agitated when they sense movement outside. Actually, I think they're curious, Lisa said. Look at how they hover near the glass when someone approaches. They're investigating us. Investigating? The technician looked confused. They're trying to attack. If they wanted to attack, they would all swarm to this spot, Lisa replied. Instead, only a few come over while the others maintain their normal patterns. That suggests reconnaissance, not aggression. The technician's compound eyes widened. That's not what the reports say. What do the reports say? Lisa asked. That they attack any movement, that they're impossible to study safely, that they'll sting anything that gets too close. Lisa nodded thoughtfully. Has anyone ever tried to communicate with them? Both Zara and the technician stared at her. Communicate? Zara asked. They are insects. Intelligent insects, Lisa corrected. Social species with complex behaviors. They must have ways of communicating with each other. She pulled out one of her small recording devices and held it near the barrier. The device made soft clicking sounds. After a moment, some of the wasps began to hover near the spot where the sounds were coming from. You're getting their attention, the technician said nervously. I'm trying to mimic their wing beat patterns, Lisa explained. Different rhythms might mean different things. She adjusted the device. The clicking changed to a slower, more regular pattern. The wasp's buzzing seemed to calm slightly. Impossible, Zara breathed. Want to see something really interesting? Lisa asked. She moved the device to a different spot along the barrier. Several wasps followed the sound. She moved it again, and they followed again. They're tracking the signal, the technician said in amazement, which means they can distinguish between different acoustic patterns, Lisa said. This isn't mindless aggression. This is intelligent response to external stimuli. Zara felt her crystal skin begin to glow with excitement. In 10 minutes, this human had learned more about the wasps than the Institute's researchers had discovered in 2 months. I want to try something, Lisa said, but I'll need permission to enter the containment chamber. The technician nearly fell over. Enter the chamber? Are you insane? Those wasps will kill you. Not if I approach them correctly, Lisa said calmly. Absolutely not, the technician replied. Institute policy strictly forbids direct contact with hostile subjects. Lisa turned to Zara. What do you think? Zara looked at the wasps, then at Lisa, then back at the wasps. Every instinct told her this was dangerous. Every rule she had learned said it was impossible. But she had watched Lisa work for only a few minutes and already seen her achieve what others couldn't. The emergency containment system can separate the chamber if needed, Zara said slowly. And there are medical stations nearby. I can't allow this, the technician protested. If something happens, I'll be held responsible. Then don't allow it, Lisa said with a smile. Just don't stop it either. Before anyone could react, Lisa walked to the chamber entrance. She placed her hand on the access panel. The door beeped, asking for authorization. Lisa, wait, Zara called out. At least let me contact medical support. There won't be time, Lisa replied. This needs to happen now, while they're already curious about the sounds. She pressed the emergency override button. Alarms began to sound. The chamber door slid open. Security alert, announced the station's computer voice. Containment breach in Laboratory Section C. Lisa stepped into the chamber. The effect was immediate. The wasps that had been hovering near the barrier suddenly swarmed toward her. Their buzzing grew louder and more aggressive. Zara pressed against the observation window, her skin blazing with fear. She's going to die, the technician whispered. But Lisa did not run. She did not panic. Instead, she stood perfectly still in the center of the chamber. The wasps circled around her like a golden tornado. Their stingers were extended, their wings beat furiously. Lisa began to hum. It was a low, rhythmic sound that matched the wasp's wing beats. As she hummed, she slowly raised her arms. Not in a threatening way, but with palms open and fingers spread. The wasp's circling pattern began to slow. Lisa changed her humming to a higher pitch. Several wasps landed on her arms. Zara gasped, expecting them to sting immediately. Instead, they seemed to be listening. More wasps landed on Lisa's shoulders and head. Within minutes, she was covered in insects, but they were not attacking. They were investigating. "How is this possible?" the technician breathed. Lisa stood motionless for several minutes, humming different patterns and letting the wasps explore. Then, very slowly, she began to move toward the nest in the center of the chamber. The wasps that had been guarding the nest did not attack. Instead, they made room for her to approach. Lisa knelt down next to their carefully constructed home and continued her humming. After what felt like hours but was probably only minutes, Lisa slowly stood up. The wasps remained on her body, but their aggressive posturing had completely disappeared. She walked back toward the chamber entrance, still humming. As she reached the door, the wasps began to fly away from her body. They did not swarm or attack. They simply returned to their normal patterns, as if her visit had been perfectly normal. Lisa stepped out of the chamber and the door sealed behind her. The alarm stopped. The station computer announced that containment had been restored. "That was the most incredible thing I have ever seen," Zara said, her voice filled with wonder. "You were right about them being social," Lisa replied, brushing a few stray wasp scales from her clothes. "They have a complex communication system based on wing beat frequencies and body positioning. Once you learn their language, they're quite friendly." The technician was staring at her with all his compound eyes. "But the previous researchers were probably approaching them wrong," Lisa said. "If you move too quickly or make threatening gestures, they interpret it as an attack, but if you show respect for their space and communicate properly, they're willing to interact." "You could have been killed," Zara said. "So could the previous researchers. The difference is that I studied their behavior first. I watched how they moved, listened to their sounds, and tried to understand their social structure before making contact." Security guards arrived, alerted by the containment breach alarm. They looked confused when they found everyone standing calmly outside the chamber. "False alarm," the technician told them. "Equipment malfunction." After the guards left, Zara turned to Lisa. "Why did you do that? You could have studied them safely from out here." "Safe observation has its limits," Lisa replied. "Sometimes you need direct interaction to truly understand a species. The wasps weren't being hostile. They were being protective. There's a difference." "How did you know they wouldn't attack?"